Welcome to Out in It, where we discuss our hunting and fishing adventures, our successes, and our failures. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming in and enjoying the first episode of Out in It with us. I look forward to what this is going to become, but this is going to be for you outdoorsmen, for you bass fishermen, and hopefully we even veer off into hunting when that time of year comes around. But as for right now, I think we're gonna stick with bass fishing, and the plan is to get guys on here who have experiences, successes, and failures, and to get them in here and give their take on things that they've experienced, things that they've done that have given them success, things that they've done that they failed at, and hopefully provide stories, insight, a good laugh along the way, and anything to help you become a better angler, anything to help me become a better angler, and hopefully just to entertain and inform. As for me, my name's Tyler Callahan. I live in Mountain View, Arkansas. I mainly fish on the White River chain of lakes, specifically North Fork and Bull Shoals. But I also live within 45 minutes of Greer's Ferry Lake. Been bass fishing for fun for quite a while now, but as far as for seriously and really diving into it, trying to understand it, I would have to say that this is probably the first year that I have gotten actually serious about it. So I look forward to diving further into it. My brother and I are joining a bass club locally here out of Batesville, Arkansas. Little tournament club there. It's the BASS. It's a BASS affiliated club out of, like I said, Batesville, Arkansas. And they've got I think there's quite a few tournaments. I think 10 to 15 tournaments somewhere in there, and it's a pretty cool deal. We definitely look forward to that this year. We will talk about those experiences as we go along. But as for now, for me, getting into bass fishing, I remember the first time that I specifically went bass fishing. It was me, my two brothers, and my uncle. And we went down to a little creek by the house called the Guyan Creek. And that's where I actually live, Guyan, Arkansas. And I've no experience at all. So I go out and it's probably a 7-inch ribbon tail worm, and I don't even know what the color of it was. I remember it was a culprit worm. It's kind of a purplish maroon, and it's got a hard black line down the one side. Definitely a two-tone kind of deal there, and like I said, I had no idea what I was doing. So we rigged that up weightless on a. I don't even know that we were using bass hooks. Honestly, I think we were probably using trout hooks, because that's most of what we had done up until that point was trout fishing. So I've got my weightless worm on there. And I tossed it out on a Zebco 33. I didn't even know how to throw an open face reel, much less a bait caster at this point. So I'm throwing it out there, and you see the bass come up and smoke my worm as it's slowly falling down. And I reel down and try to set the hook, and he didn't take it, and I didn't hook him. And then I reel it back in and toss it back out there. And that fish comes up and smokes it again, and I didn't set the hook on him that time either. And at that point, I just had found somewhat of a enjoyment in that, and it challenged me to where I was like, I want to do this again. So after having missed those fish, we go to the house, and I get to where I'm like, you know what? I want to go down there and I want to do this again. So my uncle's got this little boat. I start loading up and I start going. I start going down there. I paddle all up and down this creek. And I remember I went way, way up the creek. And there's a shallow spot around a bend. It comes in, it kind of 90s around, and there's a little hole right there, and there's water real swift, and the bank's washed out and kind of caved over. And I had a Cinco, and it was a black chartreuse and orange Cinco, and I had it tied on weightless again. And I remember I went up there and I had caught 4 or 5 of them, and I was like, oh, I'm starting to figure this out. And I took my brother down there, and we went down, and he put the same lure on, put the same worm on, same thing. Started catching a few. And that was the first time that I really remember enjoying bass fishing. And this has been several years ago, and I didn't really fully pursue it as far as like just continually going all the time. But we went off and on quite a bit there at this creek. And we got further down the road there, and I started, my brother got a boat. We started going to the lake. We started enjoying that. Started doing some night fishing, and slowly leaned in some night fishing tournaments. We've done that a few times now, and we truly enjoy it. So I think the first time that I really felt like I began to understand bass fishing a little bit had to have been last year, last summer, 2023. It was around the 4th of July. And, like I said, I have a little bit of an idea of it, but as far as like I'm going out, I'm going to get in a boat myself. It was just me and my wife. It was sometime around the 4th of July, because I know there were firework displays going on everywhere. And we go down to the lake. It's we went to Bull Shoals Lake, which is, probably an hour and 20-minute drive, maybe an hour and a half drive from the house there. So we go up to Bull Shoals, and I remember I was watching a video, and they said that but when bass are starting to creep into their summer pattern, which it was hot, they most assuredly were getting into that summer pattern, that you want to look for humps, or you want to look for banks where they can get from really deep to really shallow so they can come up and feed. And so I'm working this bank, and I had found this little spot that I liked in a little cut, and there's a ditch. There was a ditch where if a good rain comes, it floods. And where this ditch runs down into this cut, there was a tree. And me and my wife had went up into that point and in that cut, and saw that there were bass all over. You could see, I don't know, for those of you who fish Bull Shoals Lake, it's a very clear lake. And you look, 40 foot down, you can see the bottom. You can see this tree laid out on the bottom. You can see the bass just swimming around everywhere on it. And I'm throwing out on this tree, pull up, and there's some buckbrush. And in the buckbrush, I saw probably 5 smallmouth that seemed like they all went 3 pounds or more. And I saw a few largemouth that were also about that size. And I was like, dadgum. There are some fish in this spot. So I go and hit my honey hole that night. Nothing. And we're working down the bank, and it's kind of a bluff-in bank, and it's deep. You're working off Main Lake there, up against this bluff, and anyhow, I just decided I worked down this bank and went around, kind of worked around the point there, and started working. It kind of 45s back the other way. And I noticed that I was working out away from the bank, and I started floating, and I actually tied another worm on, and as we're floating, I look over at it's just 2D sonar. Now I'm telling you, this boat I'm fishing in, I'm not set up with, I wasn't set up with front facing. I've got 2D sonar, and I'm floating along the bank there, start floating out towards Main Lake, and I look down and there's a hump. And on the hump, I see some bait fish, and I was like, man, I could swear I watched a video about this. So I float out a little bit past that hump, and I start noticing I'm working on the back side of it. Well, I've got my worm tied on at this point. I ease back up there to where I'm off that hump a little bit, cast over the hump, dragging my worm, reel, dragging, get a bite, reel down, set the hook. I get a 3-pound bass. I was like, well, shoot, it's working. Cast out again, very next cast, same spot, dragging, get another bite, reel down, set the hook, 3-pound bass. So I keep getting bites. At this point, I only got 2 to the boat at that very moment, but I was getting a couple more nibbles, and went to learn later that summer that with those 10-inch worms, you've got to give them a second to take that worm. But worked down the bank there, find another little hump, and I ended up catching another. So I was there maybe 30 minutes, and I caught 9 pounds in 30 minutes. And, for a guy that's not really fished the lake that much, that's a huge opportunity, a huge deal for me to be able to do that. And, it was pretty sweet. So for me to have that aha moment kind of and see something that I had seen other people talking about, to actually experience that, where someone said, hey, find a hump off of Main Lake Point, spot where they can come up and feed, and to be able to catch fish like that was awesome. And then later that night, I worked back up to my honey hole, and we get back up there. My wife was wore out. I mean, honestly, I was wore out too, but she's laying on the back deck of the boat, passed out, and I'm fishing still. And I go back into that tree, and I'm fishing my worm, and I get a bite. And at first I was like, I think I'm hung up in this tree. And I start pulling on it, and, it won't come out. And hell, I reel down and get some tension and try to yank it out of there. And when I do it, I feel that bass shake its head, and I've got a big one. And so I'm waking my wife up, tapping my foot on the thing. Hey, wake up. I got a big bass. And I can't, you want to be aggravated, but, she was sleeping. She was wore out. And that bass rolls up to the top, and I see its mouth. And for the life of me, I want to feel like it was a 5-6 pound bass, which for me would have been my personal best. But just to have those successes and see yourself learn and grow and understand some things, it makes it all worthwhile. And I want to take the opportunities of with this podcast to talk to other people who have had successes and ask them questions and pick their brains, not only so that I can learn, but so that everybody can learn, so that anybody who's watching this can say, hey, this is pretty sweet. This is something that I've always wanted to understand, and now I'm getting the opportunity to understand those things. So anyhow, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. This is just a quick little tidbit. I hope to get another podcast up soon. I'm definitely going to get some other anglers on here, get some fresh perspectives, get some content out, and hopefully get some just some good quality stuff out there for you guys who are trying to learn, and maybe each episode there's one thing you can take away from it that makes you a better angler, and if not, then hopefully maybe at least my stories will make you laugh every now and again. So anyhow, I appreciate you taking the time out of your life to tune in, and I hope you have a great evening. And if you're anything like me, I just can't wait to get back out in it.